I'm here at the Maxon booth where we are showcasing how worldwide amazing artists are showing how they use Maxon 1 in their workflow to put together some of the most amazing animations, illustrations, and imagery on any screen you see anywhere. Just to my left is Braden Wheeler. He's going to be showcasing some amazing stuff. I do believe it's with Nickelodeon?
Yep,
yeah, so
that's right.
With Nickelodeon. So let's give a big Maxon welcome for Braden Wheeler.
Hey.
That's good. Look at you.
All right. Hey everybody, excited to be here. This is super fun. Sharing with you a project that was really dear to our hearts and a lot of fun to work on. So we're here to talk about some things that we did for Nickelodeon. So we worked on rebranding the entire network, sort of all touch points, and really built all of that around a C4D Redshift pipeline, and it was great. But first, who am I? I am a designer, animator, turned creative director. I've been a C4D artist since I started doing 3D. Good split between technical and sort of art direction. And so, you know, I like to do all things. I don't have my own reel here, but my studio reel, I'll share with you guys to get a sense of our studio called Roger. We are a multidisciplinary studio doing lots of 2D, 3D animation, live action, branding, all kinds of things. But here, I'll just let the work do the talking.
Are we ready for the big party? Almost! Yeah!
I love you.
I know.
What does it all mean?
Cool. So thank you. So as a studio, we are a lot of different talents, a lot of different styles, and we try to bring all of that into everything that we do, whether it's, you know, live action mixed with 2D or 3D that's stylized mixed in with, you know, 2D animation. We like to mix it up, and that's something that really came together on the Nickelodeon project. So we'll do one more little video here, and then we'll start to talk about all the things that went into it.
Come on, you know just what to do. It's in your blood, now follow through. Come on, get with it, give it everything you got.
Do you smell it?
you. Gotta give it everything you gotta make the dream come true.
Cool. So the project as a whole was not just a broadcast package, but started with a logo and whole brand identity around typography, color, texture, and sort of all started with this splat shape that then inspired a whole system of graphics around that. And so I like to say, it was not just a broadcast package because the scale of it was hundreds of deliverables, probably 400 or 500 deliverables for on-air, streaming, digital, social, parks, products, pretty much everything. And then, on top of that, our client very much wanted to push us in a direction of using 3D for everything, which, is great. It looks fantastic, but that's a terrifying prospect when you have 400 deliverables. So we had to really approach it from a very modular direction and had to think about it, in very clever ways to try and minimize that work while still taking advantage of all the wonderful things that you can do with 3D and Cinema 4D and Redshift. So in the best way to understand the pieces that went into this, we're going to go and we're going to make this, which is a logo animation for Nickelodeon, obviously. We'll make it from scratch, and we'll try and do it in 30 or 45 minutes. So the pieces that go into this. Cell 3D, this is a workflow that we sort of made up for this. I'll explain exactly what that is in a moment. We added a lot of dynamics on top of that. And then this last bit, which I call modular revisionism, is a mouthful. And that is sort of an approach to the motion that really kind of brings it all brings the energy to it. So to talk about each individual piece, the first one is this cell to 3D workflow. So looking at a brand like Nickelodeon, we were very focused on the history of the brand and the love of traditional animation. And we knew we wanted to incorporate that style into the package. And we had the crazy idea, like let's actually do it starting with cell. And as a lot of you know, or maybe don't, taking a cell animated piece and bringing that into 3D and creating, generated geometry in a procedural way is a bit tricky. So we had to come up with a workflow using some Python scripting and some clever automation within both Finder and Bridge and all that to translate those frames into something we can use in 3D. On top of that, we have dynamics. So, we're designing a package that is pretty, it's fun, but a lot of times our client would say, hey, it needs to be like, sillier, it needs to be goofy or surprising. So that's when all of the dynamics within C4D really gave us a lot of opportunities to inject that, silliness into it. So we'll see throughout the package, although we're only going to touch a little bit of it, dynamics were really a huge part of this. And then the last bit is this modular revisionism, which really is just ADHD in real life. So the idea is we create these different pieces that are consistent across the board. So typography is always in the same spot, the shapes are consistent, but then we do different treatments for the type, whether that's balloon type or slime type, and then play with colors and textures and just make it so nothing really sticks. Everything is always changing, keeps the energy up and makes it just a lot of fun to watch. Okay, so coming back around, because obviously if we're going to make this thing, we better get going. So we're going to start with the cell to 3D. So well, first we could pause and say, why not just make it in 3D and skip the cell part? So a couple reasons to do that. Number one, there's a magic to cell animation, traditional animation, that is just hard to translate in 3D. You give a 3D artist the same job as a cell artist. The cell artist is going to come up with a lot of different in-between shapes that a 3D artist might not do the same. And so there's magic that's just hard to recreate. In addition to that, if you're staffing a large job that needs to create all these elements, if you can carve off a piece of that and give that to a different kind of artist, and then feed that into the pipeline later, it allows you to sort of diversify the talent pool a bit. So we were able to start with cell animators working on logo animations and things, and meanwhile set other things up in 3D and then meet in the middle. Also made client approvals a bit easier. Could just show them a cell animation and then say, trust me, it's going to go in 3D, it's going to look awesome. And then we had to be like, I hope it looks awesome. And thankfully it did. So looking at what that looks like, these are rough passes. So this is the kind of thing we'd say, talk to our cell animator, say this is what we're trying to do. They give us a bunch of options that look like this. And we say, hey, yeah, we like this one, that one. Let's take that to the next level. And they would give us a refined pass, which is going to be either on 2s or on 1s, and really just smooth out all those shapes. Sip of water. So with that, we have now a set of 2D shapes that I'm going to jump out of this, and we're going to go over and take a look at them. If we look at something that we get from the cell animator, we get these series of frames. And these are great. We've got all of the frames we need to have an animation. If we frame through them, we can see what that looks like. But these are bitmapped images. They are not vectors. And C4D is going to want some vectors in order to create geometry. So we decided to kind of go this auto trace approach, which we used right here in Bridge, and just sent this through an auto trace and batched those into a single document. Not going to go and run this through, but pretty simple there. And what you end up is this kind of crazy Illustrator document. And it's got all of your individual frames in it. If we just solo them, you'll see these are the frames of the animation. They're all stacked up in all these layers. And that's cool. We now have vectors, so that's helpful. But we still need to get this into C4D to make something out of it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just go ahead and open up an auto-traced version of what we were just looking at, that swirl. And I'm not going to make the vector object. I'm just going to import it. And when it comes in, we have this nice little similar. We see all of the frames at once. Looks kind of cool, but it doesn't really help us because it's not animating. If we take a look over at our objects here, we've got all of our frames, and they're labeled as such. And so that's great. Underneath, we've got some objects, some spline objects. So what we want to do is we want to be able to make this into something that is going to, create an animation. And the way to do that is to make things only visible when they match up with the frame number that they were drawn on. And so you could go and you could hand animate each one of these objects, but we knew that we were going to have to do this repeatedly, and it would make a bit of sense to do it with some scripting. So we went, actually I have a workspace, I'm going to open this up. So we went ahead and, let me open the script manager, and created some Python scripts to help automate some of these things. So if I open up, we're going to go to renamer, and this guy. And so this Python script is, I'm not going to go all into the details here, but essentially what it's going to do is it's going to look at this null, it's going to look at all the sub-objects, and it's going to rename them based on their position in the stack. So it's going to just remove a lot of extraneous information and just rename them so it's nice and neat for what we need for our purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that, and we'll see over here everything's now been renamed, the splines included, and that's good. That's a good step, but we still don't have animation, right? And we need to get this to animate. So the last thing we need to do to get this headed in the right direction is to get this to only display the spline that is important for the frame that we're looking at. And so to do that, we have one more Python script, and I'm going to just open that up this way. This is called our switcher. I'm going to copy it over. And I'll open this up. Again, this one's even more complicated, but it looks at these objects and more or less just says, if that number matches the number where the playhead is, display it. Otherwise, turn it off. So if we take all of these objects and bring them up into our switcher, we'll see suddenly everything disappears. And voila, we have animation. So this is great. We're really getting there pretty quickly. I have this spline switcher. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in a connect object. And that's just going to give me a way to use that with a bunch of different generators. And then just for good housekeeping purposes, I'm going to drop this into an instance and put this, let's just drop it in here and we'll hide it. So now I have this connect instance. I can do all kinds of things with it. I can extrude it. And now we have a 3D extruded version of that animation, which is pretty sweet. Where are my attributes? Over here. Let's just make this less crazy. I can also take that and I can drop this into a sweep. And I can sweep it. Let's make this something reasonable. Like 1 maybe. And hide this one. And now we've got a sweeped version of it. And that's cool. And this just gives us the ability to use those shapes that were previously hand-drawn. Now we have them as procedural objects here in Cinema. So that's cool. We're going to go and let's actually just put this in our back pocket. And we're going to save it just in case. I'll save it out here. And then we're going to go back over here and take a quick look at the second part of that animation. If we take a look at it again, we've got this Nickelodeon logo animation here. We've got this balloon type situation going on, pops out and then pulls back into shape. And so we're going to go and we're just going to use the dynamics tools in Cinema to create that same thing. So let's pop open this guy. Okay. So I've got a logo here, Nickelodeon logo. With the new dynamic system, actually was very much improved while we were working on this project. I could just go and drop a balloon tag on there, and something magic's going to happen. They're just going to fall away. That's not what we want. So we're going to go in simulation. I'm going to kill the gravity. And nothing is happening because they're not inflated. So if we go to this balloon tab, I can overpressure, add more pressure to the balloons. And I'm going to just drop the expansion time down a bit. And if we play this down now, hopefully they don't fall away, but they inflate into a nice little animation. Very sweet. Okay, let's make it a little longer so we get a bit more out of it. And then I'm just going to make a quick tweak to this. There's a lot you can do with the surface, all the the way it bends and stretches. But I'm just going to make a quick change to 2 things, and we're going to see how that looks. Basically, this drop in the bendiness is going to give us a little more definition around the letters. And so that's going to help us just give a little bit on the edges there. I think that's probably good enough for our demo. We're just going to keep flying here. And I'm actually just going to go and bake these as an alembic. And we just got to wait a few brief moments. Let that jam. Cool. That's it. We've got that baked as an alembic. We don't need our dynamics tags anymore. Now we've got this nice little animation. Very cool. But we need to be able to control it even more from here. So from here, we want to be able to have it kind of pop out, but we need it to pull back in. So we're going to do a little bit of time remapping. We're going to do that right in here in the alembic. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this as a driver. And I'm going to use that to tell all the other objects to follow the lead here. So all I need to do is make a change to 1, and all the other objects will time remap based on the 1. So that's great. We can kind of start to play with this and make a little boomerang here. If we pull that back and play it, it's going to play and then snap back. So that's good. We got, we're getting there. But the thing that we're really, losing when we do this is suddenly it feels really rigid. We've lost our, the real dynamics. We've lost the magic there. So one fun way to get some of that back after the time remapping is to add on a jiggle deformer. So I can drop this right underneath it, and then right out of the gate, we're going to get a lot of spring in the geometry. Now, for our purposes here, there's a lot that needs to be refined. If you take a look at the C, for instance, it's going to smash through itself. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. We could go and sort of dial all this stuff in and get it, perfect, but we're going to just keep on jamming. So let's go back and look at our time remap here, and we're going to go add a couple quick keyframes. And basically, we just want to find some version of this that feels nice, kind of popping out, and then snapping back into place. And that's pretty cool. But we also want to make our animation kind of go from the center out. So we're going to go and add some offset to some of these objects. So I can click through and grab some and just add a little bit of offset. And just adding a few frames to each one of these outer pieces. And slowly, we've got more of a center out animation here, which is feeling pretty nice, I think. So I feel good about that. I think we could go and grab this guy and just bring it over to our other setup. And we've got a bit of a scale problem, which we can take care of here. Let's go and make our original object bigger. Maybe we go here and where is my attributes? We're gonna scale this up by 40 maybe. Let's see. And nothing happens. Okay, let's not do it that way, I guess. Let's scale this guy down by 40. All right, we'll do it this way. Okay, there we go. And we can go and move this stuff back in space and shift it around so that when we land, we can get into a position here where we can bring all the pieces together. This has some, okay, all right, it's fighting me. All right, let's do it this way. I'm gonna move the background pieces to get behind the logo. Okay, drop those back there. Let's go a little bigger. Let's go 50 maybe. Ah. Oh no. Okay. All right, so now we've got these two pieces and they are somewhat working together. The timing isn't great. Also, this sweep is really chunky. I'm gonna just turn that off and go back to the extrude for a little bit. And I'm gonna make it an inverse here. I'm gonna drop a spline mask over this guy. No, I'm just missing my buttons here. And basically, I'm gonna subtract that mask so I can have the inverse, so we can make a little window. Now we can kind of see through where that animation is happening. All right. And the fun thing there is that we can actually keyframe the visibility on that subtracting layer, and that's going to give us the opposite effect. So now we can actually keyframe this guy and have it switch from one to the other. So we're going to start filled, and then we'll have it reverse into a window. I'm going to make this a little thinner. Right now it's pretty chunky. Let's maybe even go down to 1. And let's play with the timing a little bit, because right now we've got the swirl guy happening, and we kind of want to have a little bit more interaction between the two layers. And so thankfully we've got everything kind of driven by this one layer here using the expressions. So I can just slide this out, and it's going to wait to do the animation, but obviously it's now happening way too late. And we're going to drag this guy up a bit. Cool. And then I'm just going to tighten up the back end of this thing so it snaps back in a little faster. And then we need to play with the visibility here. So right now it's just kind of hanging out there. So let's have it start to appear right when it's animating on. So I'm going to just go in here and animate the visibility here real quick and get rid of it while we don't want it. And so then we can focus a bit on the first part where we've got that animation happening, and then we're snapping this guy into place. All right. I've kind of made a bit of a weird version of this, but we're just going to keep jamming with it. Let's go and add a little bit of camera movement to give it a little bit more dynamic, to match with the motion that's happening in there. I'm going to add a keyframe on the Z because this is where we want to end up. And I'm going to go in tighter in here. Oh, no, not that tight. Come on. It's very sensitive. Okay. And then let's go back here, and maybe we'll add a bit of a zoom in. Let's see what this does. All right, let's see. So we've got our swirl. I'm going to delay that a bit so it's a little snappier. And then same thing on the back end. Just tighten up the keyframes so we've got some nice snappiness happening. And yeah, we're going in a little too tight, so I'm going to go and open up the F curves here and just tweak that. Oh no. Okay. I could just drag these guys down, and that's going to adjust how tight I'm getting in that first part. And maybe when I want to start a little wider and end a little wider. And then I'm kind of feeling like I want to get the Nickelodeon to actually kind of snap in when we're landing in that other part. So I'm going to actually go back and just try shifting this whole thing earlier and see where that gets us. And then I, of course, need to move my other keyframe to match up. Let's grab this. And we're getting close here. And I'm just going to slide it out a bit. Cool. Yeah, let me do a couple more tweaks on this camera. And just make this a bit, oh boy. It's got that zoom going on for the tablet. Let me use the mouse. I could just highlight all my keyframes and hit S to frame selected. And it's a little better. If I pull this guy back a little bit now, I'll get a snappier reveal. Of course, my camera's not enabled, and that's why it's not looking right. And all of my keyframes are gone on it, so we're going to just make a new one and pretend that didn't happen. There we go. Let's just hang out over here. Okay, let's make a new camera. That's fun. I'm going to go, we're going to do this all over again real fast. And let's get to here and kind of play with the Z position a bit. Trying to zoom through all this stuff, but ultimately we're making something that's, we spent a lot of time on, and we're going to do it in a few minutes. But just trying to get the general broad strokes across. Oh man, this thing's really driving me nuts. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do this. Oversensitive mouse, oversensitive tablet. Should have checked that. All right, so nothing great happening yet. It's a bit too extreme, and I'm just going to make it snappier and have this guy time up a bit with the resolve back here and see what we can do there. That first one's a bit early. Let's slide it up, or late rather. Maybe we go there. There we go. That's cool. And then we pull it back into place, and maybe we want to make it a little snappier too. Boom. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's more or less the idea behind this thing. So now we can go and we can play a little bit with this revisionist idea. So we could go and add, you know, a swap in here. Maybe somewhere in here, we actually swap from this extrude. We can go and just disable it. And in that same moment, we'll go and turn on our sweep. And so we want to be off. And then on. Let's fix that thickness because it looks crazy. Maybe that's going to be like too thin. All right, let's try a quarter. Yeah, there we go. Let's go with that. And then, you know, we're going to have that swirl around, and then maybe when we snap it back, we could go back to the other layout. And so this is like that, you know, revisionism, that ADHD that we injected into it. So we'll go and we'll just keyframe this guy. Get rid of that. You could definitely script this too. I'm a big fan of anything that you have to do it a bunch of times. You probably should just write a script for it. We're not going to do that today. All right, cool. So now we've got this kind of back and forth thing, switching between different geometries. Now it's a noodle. Now it's a wall. We could go and we can start to add in, you know, different colors to this. If we just drop in some, you know, some orange on there, we can start to see it a little better. Yeah, it's not Nickelodeon orange, but, you know, no one's going to yell at me. Let's go and throw that onto our objects and go for that. And so we just get a little better of a look at what, you know, all this stuff looks like back there. You know, one thing that we did with this very specifically is you'll notice the design. You know, if we were to go back in here and take a look at the design, it's very flat to camera, and that was very intentional. Even though we were making all this stuff in 3D, we wanted to keep it quite subtle. And part of that was for the purposes of being able to swap back and forth between different objects and not have any issues with cameras and space in that regard. But with a lot of the, you know, the more special elements like bumpers, like this bottom one here, you know, we got to play with 3D space a lot more. But in general, having to create a big amount of you know, deliverables, it was in our favor to kind of keep things a bit more flat. It also was a bit more of an elegant way to do it. And yeah, that I think, you know, about covers us there. I'm going to jump back to our main view and just kind of take it from here. You know, next steps here, obviously we've got no texture, we've got no light. You know, so we could sit here all day and make this thing super awesome. But, you know, we don't have all that time. So I think, let's see, where am I on time here? Yeah, I'm going to go and wrap it up. I think if anybody has any questions, I could take questions or we can hang out. I just caught him off guard because I just kind of wrapped it up. Yeah. Moving fast.
Quick draw. You make me sprint. Quick draw over here.
Yeah.
That was a great piece.
Yeah.
So, do we have any questions for Braden while we have him?
No.
See, you did a good job. That's what happens when you do a good job. Like it just flows. But Braden will be over at our demo booth over at our partner Dell for the next hour. So if you do have any questions, that's a good time if you're a little shy here. Internet, stay tuned. We're going to be getting ready for our next presenter. So give us about 5 or 10 minutes, get all the files warmed up. And yeah, thanks again. Braden Wheeler, everybody. Round of applause.